Today on the Commanders Report, we're going to be doing a Commanders mock draft roundup. Another slate of post-free agency mock drafts have hit the presses, and there's some very interesting prospects being linked to the Washington Commanders by some of the biggest names in NFL draft media. Welcome into the show, guys. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and if you guys want the best Commanders draft content anywhere here on YouTube, 100% free of charge, make sure you guys click that subscribe button below this video for in-depth prospect analysis like we're going to give to you guys today. Positional rankings at all the top positions of needs and trackers and all that different stuff of who the Commanders are visiting with, weekly 7-round mock drafts and all that content, guys, and it's 100% free. We'll have breaking news coverage when the Commanders make draft picks during the NFL draft this year, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And with that, let's get into our first mock draft to react to today, which comes to us from Field Yates from ESPN, where he predicts that the Commanders will draft Notre Dame running back Jeremiyah Love with the number 7 overall draft selection. This is what Yates has to say about this pick. I'd argue the floor of Love would be at number 7, as this would be a home run move for the Commanders with their only pick of the first 2 rounds. While the team signed veterans Rachaad White and Jerome Ford in free agency, make no mistake that the running back room has more than enough room for Love. 7th round pick Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt is Washington's only returning running back from 2025 when he recorded 805 rushing yards, which was the team high, and just 68 receiving yards. Love is the most dynamic offensive player in this class, running a 4.36 second 40-yard dash at the combine and averaging 10.4 yards per catch in 2025. He would immediately alleviate pressure on quarterback Jayden Daniels, also adding value as a pass protector. And there's a report from Todd McShay, also very plugged into the NFL draft space here, guys, from The Ringer, says that the Commanders have, quote-unquote, a lot of interest in Jeremiyah Love, and if he makes it to them at number 7, there is a decent chance that the Commanders are going to pull the trigger on the Fighting Irish running back. Now, personally, guys, I think Washington has other top priorities that they could address here with the number 7 overall pick. In my opinion, running back, is a position that's not really a super high-value position. I think it's very dependent on offensive line play, not to mention scheme. And I think that it's a position that has a short shelf life. If there's an ACL tear and an Achilles tear, they're not the same usually. So that scares me quite a bit. And then also, there's premium positions still available with really high-end draft prospects at this point in the draft. There's going to be players at corner and big nickel and safety and wide receiver that the Washington Commanders, I think, should be maybe considering more than running back. It's nothing against Love. I'm a Notre Dame fan myself, and I absolutely love Jeremiyah Love as a player. And at the end of the day, guys, I'd be lying if I said that I wouldn't be excited for this offense if they ended up drafting Jeremiyah Love. I mean, you pair him up with the dynamic Jayden Daniels, we could be looking at one of the best quarterback running back duos of the National Football League immediately, right? They might be the most dynamic duo in the league from day one, from the quarterback and running back position, and that could catapult this team back into title contention and make this one of, if not the best offenses in the National Football League in David Blau's first year as the offensive play caller here in Washington. So, the upside of it is very fun to think about. The skill set is very fun to think about in the Washington Commanders offense next to a quarterback like Jayden Daniels. But certainly when I look at, the other players that are going to be available at the other positions of need on this Washington Commanders team, and you also take into account that the Commanders don't have a lot of draft picks in this year's NFL draft, and they need to address some of these positions with some of their top draft picks this season. Honestly, I'm okay going with Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, Rachaad White, Jerome Ford, and Jeremy McNichols as the top 4 running backs in the Commanders' offense. Now, Todd McShay says that the Commanders love Jeremiyah Love, but he doesn't have Washington taking Jeremiyah at number 7 in his mock draft. He actually has Love going higher. So who does McShay think is going to be a Washington Commander on draft night? We're going to answer that question here in just a second. But first, let me know down there in the comment section, how many prospects would you take above Jeremiyah Love if you are the Commanders in the NFL draft this year? Let me know how many and what are the prospects. All right, for me personally, I think I have 6. I think I would take Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate, and Mansoor Delane. I think I'd take those 6 players at more higher positions of need and higher positions of value than Jeremiyah Love, a running back, at number 7 overall. But this will be the pinned comment on today's show, so So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about an awesome new t-shirt that we have up on our website right now for you guys to purchase. While I'm discussing that t-shirt today, give me your number and the players that you would take above Jeremiyah Love at number 7. And with that, go check out our website right now, guys, at chatsports.com/scary and pick up your Scary Terry McLaurin t-shirts from us here on the Commanders Report shop right now. I think that this is an awesome t-shirt, guys. We've been working with our merch guy, Arnold, on this design for a very long time. You guys have been asking for a Scary Terry McLaurin t-shirt for a very long time, and I think we absolutely knocked it out of the park for you guys. And the early returns are in, and you guys are absolutely loving it. In just the first week since we launched this t-shirt, we have sold over 100 of these babies. So if you guys want to make a purchase today, they're $29.99 on our website right now. Go chatsports.com/scary. It comes in black, red, or my personal favorite, white. If you guys want to check out our website and pick out a t-shirt for yourself or somebody that you love, a Commanders fan in your life, just go to chatsports.com/scary and pick up yours today. Now, Todd McShay has the Washington Commanders taking Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State, with the number 7 overall pick in his latest mock draft. This is what McShay had to say about this pick. Linebacker isn't as big of a need for the Commanders as guard, running back, or wide receiver, but Styles would pair beautifully with newly acquired linebacker Leo Chenal for a defense that ranked dead last in total yards allowed last season. At 6'5" and 244 pounds with an 81-inch wingspan and 10-inch hands. God damn. Styles is a physical phenom. He was the biggest linebacker at this year's combine, ran the fastest 10-yard split, tied Arvell Reese for the fastest 40, and had the most explosive jumps. And all of his numbers are right there for you guys to feast on. This guy's an absolute physical freak of nature, which is honestly why I think he's off the board before the Commanders get a chance to take him at number 7. But personally, guys, if the Commanders have the opportunity to take Styles, he would be one of those players that I would take ahead of Jeremiyah Love, for example, but I wouldn't play him at linebacker. I think some of his run defense tape is a little bit choppy. He's not in the right place all the time as a run defender, and I think that, honestly, his special gift is his coverage ability at his size. So I would play him at big nickel because we've seen how these types of big nickel players have transformed NFL defenses. Just look at Nick Emenwari there with the Seattle Seahawks last year. Just look at Derwin James with the Los Angeles Chargers. Look at what Jalen Ramsey's been able to do over the last several years in a bunch of different spots playing the nickel position. Like, having a bigger body in there that can be a hybrid linebacker but can also cover out in space is extremely valuable in today's NFL, and that's exactly what I see when I look at Sonny Styles. He's got an awesome coverage profile. He's got the athleticism to cover, slot wide receivers, but he's 245 freaking pounds. Like, you can play, you can just live in your base or your nickel personnel all day long, even when teams go to their 12 and 13 personnel packages, because you have the size to be able to handle those types of fronts, but you also have the speed on the field to handle any amounts of receivers that are on the field as well. So I think Sonny Styles, bringing him in, could completely transform the Washington Commanders defense if they plug him in at big nickel. And if he's there at number 7, he'd be one of the top guys I would be running to the podium for if I'm Adam Peters and the Washington Commanders. Now, moving on to our next mock draft here, Warren Sharp has the Commanders taking cornerback out of LSU, Mansoor Delane, who is the consensus number 1 corner in this year's NFL draft. And guys, I'll tell you guys this right now, okay? I wouldn't completely rule out Delane at number 7. Not a lot of people are talking about this guy going to the Commanders at the number 7 overall pick, and I do think there are, multiple players that I would take ahead of Delane, okay? Sonny Styles being one of those, Caleb Downs probably being another, Arvell Reese being another one there. But you look at the need at cornerback, guys, you can argue cornerback is one of the biggest weaknesses on the Commanders roster this year. Once again, it's been one of the calling cards of the Dan Quinn era these last 2 years, is that this cornerback room consistently stinks. And I think right now you can look at the way that it's shaping up, and you got Trey Amos, who's a very rock solid, second-year player coming off of an injury. I feel really good about Trey Amos, all right? But Mike Sainristil has struggled, to say the least, least in his first 2 years, and Amik Robertson struggled last year in Detroit as well. So, I think that this team, you look at the cornerback room, and if Sainristil doesn't show up, if Robertson doesn't show up, like if both of those guys end up not playing well next year, you're looking at one of the worst cornerback trios in the National Football League next season. And then you look at the depth, like you're talking about Carlin Viggers and Darius Rush behind those guys. Like if there's injuries, whatever, it's not a good situation, guys. Now you do have like Quan Martin and Will Harris that have some experience playing in the slot and playing nickel, either in college, in the pros, or both. But there's just not a whole lot of experience and a lot of depth at outside corner for the Washington Commanders. And if the Commanders end up taking Mansoor Delane at number 7, it might not be the sexy pick necessarily, but like Delane is a legitimate like shut down corner, man. Like this guy is legit. He doesn't maybe have the best size in the world necessarily, but man, he is so good on film. He is so sticky. And if you pair him up with Trey Amos for the next half decade here in Washington, you immediately take maybe the biggest weakness of this roster right now, maybe outside of wide receiver, and turn it into a major strength and give yourself one of the best cover cornerback duos in the entire league. And then you don't need Mike Sainristil and Amik Robertson to hit. You just need one of those guys to hit as your starting slot corner, and then whoever loses that battle can be your number 3 corner that can come in if there's an injury, right? So I think that drafting Delane would put this cornerback room in a really, really good spot, and I don't think that him as a possibility at number 7 should go slept on by Commanders fans out there. But then the final mock that we'll talk about today comes from Pro Football Focus's James Plauché, who has the Commanders getting Arvell Reese, the linebacker edge hybrid out of Ohio State. Reminds a lot of people of Micah Parsons, who, of course, Dan Quinn helped turn into a superstar in Dallas his rookie season. This is what Plauché has to say about this pick. The Commanders luck out that the uber-athletic Arvell Reese falls to them. Reese finished the 2025 season with an impressive 86.5 PFF run defense grade. However, his 72.3 PFF pass rush grade wasn't at the elite level you would want to see from a top 10 pick who might be playing on the edge. Now, kind of like Parsons, I will say Reese is going to be very raw coming into the league as a pass rusher. But honestly, man, I think, for a guy like Dan Quinn, who helped mold Micah Parsons in Dallas, he might be looking at a guy like Arvell Reese as his number 1 overall player on their board this year. And if Reese is there at number 7, it would not surprise me if they would take him over anybody else in this draft, because you guys saw how good Micah Parsons went from Penn State. Well, remember, let's take a trip in the time machine here. You go back to that draft when Micah Parsons was coming out of Penn State. What was being said about him? He's super raw. He's going to need a couple years to develop. But no, under Dan Quinn, he immediately turned into a superstar and a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and eventually became one of, if not the best edge rusher in the entire National Football League. That's the type of physical specimen we're talking about with a guy like Arvell Reese, who hasn't really done a whole lot on the edge, but Parsons really didn't do a whole lot on the edge at Penn State. And Dan Quinn immediately transformed him into one of the best players in football. So I think that, for a guy like Dan Quinn, the GM Adam Peters, they're looking at a guy like Arvell Reese as somebody that could be an absolute game changer for the Washington Commanders defense, that they could move all around the defensive front. And I think that if he makes it to number 7, which I don't think he will, I think he'll probably be a top 3 pick. But if he does make it to number 7, I would expect Arvell Reese to be the name spoken by Roger Goodell at the number 7 overall selection. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who should be the number 1 player on the Commanders draft board this year? Who are you taking in this year's draft over everybody else if he's available at number 7 this year? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. I can't wait to see your answers when I go through the comments later. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. I will see you guys next time, and until then, go raise some hail.